continue on now to our weekly segment Movie Spotlight, reviewing some of the latest cinematic releases at the box office and online. That means we are, of course, joined by our film critics. First, we have Jason Bechervaise. Jason, hello.
Hello, Django.
And we have Darcy Paquette with us as well. Darcy, hello to you too.
Yeah, good to be here.
Okay, this week we're kicking off with a new Korean film. It's called Christmas Carol, and it has the same title in Korean. And Jason, despite its name, it's not exactly your typical end-of-year festive film, is it?
No, it's not. It's the polar opposite, in fact. It's grim, it's violent. Lots of, foul language, and it's cynical view of the church. It's not something you associate with Christmas movies. So this is not a Christmas film. It's based on a novel by Ju Won-gyu that was published in December 2016. The film's inciting incident takes place on Christmas Eve, which we see partially at the beginning of the film. And so the protagonist's twin brother, he has learning difficulties and he's found dead. So we have this character played by singer and actor Jin Young. And he doesn't feel it's he's largely suspicious that the police are not really investigating it properly, and they're not treating it as murder. So and he has a phone call with his twin brother. He hears something, and then he confirms from some CCTV footage that he was indeed attacked. And so what he does is he gets himself incarcerated at a juvenile detention center, and as he seeks revenge. So that kind of common thread that we often see in Korean films, it's back here in a big way. And so he's basically, he wants to find the gang responsible for his brother's death and unleash hell. And there one of the teachers, played by Kim Young-min, attempts to counsel him, but his mind is made up. It's directed by Kim Sung-soo. Now there are two Kim Sung-soo, so when I saw the director, I was like, is this the Kim Sung-soo? It's not
the
that
other Kim
it's the other Kim Sung-soo. Yeah. So
Okay.
the when I talk about the Kim Sung-soo, this is the director behind Beat and Asura. This Kim Sung-soo, he made the action film Running Man 2005 and one or two other film, and also a TV series. And Christmas Carol also features Kim Dong-hee, who recently won the Best New Actor award at the Blue Dragon Awards for his role in Our Prime. Right,
so Darcy, a very grim, a very violent revenge story, essentially. How did you find it? Perhaps too dark for this time of year?
Well, I mean, definitely, if you're in the mood for something Christmassy, then, I mean, it's a film that kind of destroys any last shred of hope for humanity you may have had before going into the theater. And, I have mixed feelings about the film because I think it was well made and, it was perfectly well directed. It's based on a novel, and the acting is very good. There are a couple things. The story, I don't want to give anything away, but, it has a twist. And there are certain films that, in trying to create this twist that will surprise the audience, kind of ends up twisting itself into knots. And, it was kind of too, I won't say it's too extreme a twist, but in trying to make this twist, it ends up kind of going in a completely different direction at the end.
Right.
And so there was that. And I wasn't really sure what the point of the film was. And not all films have to have a point, but the film asks a lot emotionally from the viewer, and it kind of really drags you through some dark places. And at the end of it, I'm not sure what I was supposed to get out of the film.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I agree with Darcy on many of those factors there, because it's certainly it's so grim, and you come out feeling quite exhausted and dirty, and it just doesn't fit. A lot of it just doesn't feel right. But that being said, though, I was rather engaged throughout the whole thing. I think it's the twist I kind of suspected. And yeah, its view on the church was quite interesting. It has a really striking image right at the end of the film, and given it's set at Christmas, and thematically it ties into a lot of what we're seeing in series and films at the moment. The acting is that was one of the things I really liked about the film. Jin Young is fantastic.
Yeah, he's really good.
And so I got home and I said to my wife, "Do you know Jin Young?" She's like, "Yes, he's really good actor." And I was really quite taken with his performance, as both a lead and also a supporting actor. And actually the whole cast was really good. And yeah, it's well directed, like Darcy said, but it's strong production values, but it is really grim, it's really dark. And yeah, it's kind of stayed with me. And I was quite surprised though that the viewers here seem to quite like the film. I wonder, is this fans of Jin Young just kind of watching the film and getting behind it? But I was like, is this going to work in Korea? It's just too dark. But I was reading the netizen comments, and a lot of them were talking about the acting. So
sure, I was curious about that, Darcy. I was curious about whether this film might find an audience here, especially at this time of year.
I mean, I'm always impressed by the strong stomach of Korean audiences, that they're able to handle really dark and violent films in a way that I think audiences from a lot of countries would just kind of turn off on. I mean, that said, it's not, I don't see it as a something that's going to make a big impact on the box office, but yeah, I mean, it does, because it leaves a strong impression on you. I think that there will be some people who don't like it, but other people who are talking about the film, and yeah, I mean, it is getting good reviews online for the fact that it has such a strong emotional effect on the viewer. So people will remember it, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was interesting also because it reminded me a lot of kind of independent films made in Korea, which, are typically quite dour, set in the depths of winter, which is what happens here.
Sure.
And yeah, at the same time, this film, it's on wide release, so it's also a kind of commercial film. So it's kind of somewhere in between an independent film and a commercial title.
Interesting. Okay, so that was our review for Christmas Carol, perhaps one of the most misleadingly titled movies of the year. Let's continue on to our second film, The Menu, an American black comedy horror starring the British actors Ralph Fiennes and Nicholas Hoult alongside Anya Taylor-Joy. So, Darcy, can you set this one up for us?
I mean, this is another one where if you just kind of glance quickly at the poster and you look at the title, The Menu, you might not be prepared for what you're going to get. So it focuses on a young couple played by Anya Taylor-Joy and Nicholas Hoult, and they are exclusive guests at this dinner, which is at an extremely exclusive restaurant with a really famous chef. The chef is played by Ray Fiennes, and they travel. I mean, the restaurant's located on this island, and so they have to take a boat out to the island, and all of the dishes are kind of crafted from, the sea creatures around the island and the things that grow on the island. And
no bread.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm guessing that's an in-joke. Okay.
If you see the movie, it is a funny in-joke. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously at the beginning making fun of kind of high-end restaurant culture and the way that, when you're served meals at these really high-end restaurants, that everything has a story behind it. And, the menu has a narrative. And so this film kind of takes that concept and while making fun of it, it pushes it as far as it can potentially go. Yeah, so the director is Mark Mylod. He's directed seasons of Succession and also Game of Thrones. So he's quite successful on TV. He directed Ali G in the House in 2002. So he has a mixed resume, perhaps, but it's also produced by a couple of famous people. Adam McKay, who did The Big Short, and Will Ferrell, the well-known comedy actor. So this premiered in Toronto in September, and it's doing well at the box office. It's close to 50 million with a budget of 30 million.
Sure. So, Darcy, I feel like you are trying to give as little detail away as possible. because I guess that's part of the fun of this film. Jason, I would say the trailer, which I've seen, made it seem more like a cross between an episode of Black Mirror and the Jordan Peele film Get Out. I'm not sure if that's right, but we described it as a black comedy horror. Is that how you would describe it as well?
Yeah. I wouldn't say it was especially funny, and so I feel somewhat conflicted. But again, this film is lingering in my brain. I can't just get it out now, and that's the whole point. It's a very kind of it's not an ideological film. It's more of a psychological film, and it just. It just really gets into your head, and you got these characters, and not everything is particularly clear. Even by the end, I had a lot of questions about what's really motivating these particular characters. But that's the whole point, I think. And we're living in a society where it's plagued with problems and social disparity and kind of Parasite. It reminded me of Parasite in some ways. And also, looking at what happened in the UK with Brexit and the United States with Trump, and we got a war in Europe. And I think this film very much focuses on the, I guess, the irrational thinking that people often make. And there's not necessarily an answer to everything. And this probably doesn't make much sense, but it really got into my head, and I quite liked it. But I'm still conflicted.
Okay, Darcy, what about you?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I mean, it's a very nasty film, and I went in not knowing very much about it. I hadn't seen the trailer. I wasn't. I didn't know what I was going to get, but I did enjoy the film. Ralph Fiennes is, he plays the chef, and he comes across as such a serious person, I mean, both in his acting, in the early part of his career, he's always playing these really heavy, serious roles, and you listen to interviews with him and he doesn't seem to have any sense of humor, and he seems really serious. And yet you put him in a comedy and he's so good at it. And I found him kind of hilarious, even though, his character himself is like dead serious in the film, but it's really funny, I thought.
It sounds like this film could become a sort of cult classic. What do you think?
Yeah, it was clearly connecting with audiences, kind of like Parasite again. And I think there's just so much rage out there, social disparity and just the state of the world. And I think you've got these characters in this restaurant, and they've all got their own backstory, which the film doesn't really go into their backstory in a big way at all. And there's a lot of there's a lot of holes in that sense. But that's what I liked about it. It just, you come out and at the end of the film, something happens and it's like, oh, okay. And also it's how these characters have changed so quickly, being influenced by those around them, their own circumstances, and kind of going back to that kind of irrational thinking that I was mentioning earlier. Yeah, it's an interesting movie, that's for sure. Yeah,
and it's nice to see a film that's also completely original, right? It's not based on a novel or a comic book or anything like that.
I know, Hollywood relies so heavily on pre-existing material, and as a film critic, it just gets really kind of frustrating and tiring, to see that the biggest films of the season are always, things that you already know what they are before you even watch them. So yeah, it was nice to see a film that kind of surprised you and took you in some unexpected places.
Yeah, it definitely does that.
Indeed, okay. So that was The Menu. We'll wrap it up there for Movie Spotlight this week, Jason, Darcy. Thank you as always for your reviews, and we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, see you next time.
Take care.